Good afternoon and welcome to Community Frontline number 5. I see that actually I am... Good afternoon and welcome to
Echo, stop it.
It's on double screen. See, that's what I tried to do. I tried to pop out the chat, but it doesn't work anymore because they removed it or somehow. It could be that you hear a lot of snoring on the background. The reason why that is actually because there's a cat on my lap who's snoring very, very loud at the moment. But if it gets too much, I'll just put the kitten away and let it be a bit more silent. Can you be a bit more silent, please? Yes, a little bit. Go sleep. Yes, it's okay. So, my apologies for the noise. I hope it's not too much, but or else I'll just put it on the ground so it can go find a different spot to sleep on. Today we have actually quite a lot of things to talk about. We prepared a decently sized stream, so I'm not sure how long it will take, but let's get started. First off, let's talk a bit about the news in the past week. As you guys have noticed, there has been quite a bit of server issues and a lot of server crashes, and right now there are some issues with AT movement. Just so you know, our IT developers or the developers responsible for the servers are doing the very best they can to sort out these issues. Unfortunately, I have not received a full update today because they are so busy trying to sort these issues, but be assured that they are definitely working on it, so hopefully we can get some fixes out soon. In regards to the assault team movement issues, that is actually a different issue, and if I'm not very much mistaken, they are working on a fix for that, so be assured that we are working on it and hopefully we can sort it out soon. I understand a lot of you guys are frustrated about this. To be honest, I think it's fair to say that so are we, so yeah, let's hope we can get it fixed soon so we can all play the game without too much service crashes anymore. So that is actually being worked on. Yeah, I see already questions about the war reset. The war reset unfortunately did not completely solve the issue. We hoped it would, but it didn't. So we already knew beforehand, before trying that we would actually need a fix to completely fix the issue, but we hoped that a war reset would stop it for now, so we had a little more time to prepare the fix. But unfortunately that's not the case, so we need to get this fix ready and we need to get it on live so we can sort it out. So yeah, besides that we also have some positive news. Oh, the cat is you're such a cute kitty. The cat is climbing up. We have some more slightly better news, is that in order with the project Glasnost, we have also decided to once again release the intelligence bulletin. And for those guys who actually played a long time ago, we used to have the intelligence bulletin on a weekly basis where we basically summed up what we were working on, sometimes specific developers and stuff like that, but right now we have reintroduced the intelligence bulletin. It's in a slightly new code. It's most likely not going to be on a weekly basis. We're still trying to determine like what is a good timing, like when is it valuable to do a new one. So it might be bi-weekly, it might be monthly, stuff like that. So that's something we're still looking into. But as you can see, it shows quite a bit of information on what we're actually working on, what is happening on the background, and the things we are looking into. So it is something we would like to continue, and we are happy to receive your feedback in regards to this. And, oh, you're such a sad kitty. He's never getting attention, no. So, if you have any feedback about these bulletins, we so far received quite a bit of positive feedback about it, but if you have any feedback at all, please be happy to share this so we can take it into account for the next ones, and let's see what we can make out of this. So, one of the other things besides the intelligence bulletin is probably what you guys have already seen as well, is the we want you as an insider. For those who have not seen it yet, the application form has been running for quite a while now. So if you want to participate or apply for this, it basically means that you will get a free trip to the office, where you will get the opportunity to talk to developers, to discuss with developers, and do a lot of other fun stuff. it is both for you and for us hopefully a way to communicate better and to discuss certain elements of the game. So the applications, if I have been told correctly, will be disabled tomorrow morning. So if you still wish to apply, you should do it probably today. And yeah, hopefully you may or may not get picked. It's going to be a very select group of players, so unfortunately, given the amount of applicants we have, not everybody will be able to participate. But if you still want to have a chance on participating, please apply now. You can find the application link and all the other stuff which you need in either the blog post. There's a huge link which says application form can be found here, or you can just go on the forums, because we also have the topics there. It's also on Steam, if I'm not very mistaken. So yeah, so that's another thing which we have been advertising and hoping you guys are apply, or we hope that some of you are definitely, well, by the looks of it, some of you definitely are willing to come and discuss certain elements of the game with us. So we're looking very forward to that. Which brings us to a few other things which I've prepared for you guys today. There's a lot of things we have been doing on the background which aren't yet on the live service, but which has been worked on. So I've made a small collection of the things which I think for this stream should be interesting to show you guys. Unfortunately, I simply don't have time to show everything which I want to. So let's start off with that. I need to find the right screen. Yes. First off, we're going to have a look at the war, because one of the changes which we have done it's I think already 2 weeks ago, 1.5 weeks ago, is that we changed the capital from Berlin. For the German capital, we changed it from Berlin to Belgrade. So one of the things which we've actually included in that to also have a look ourselves on how that is going is that we have updated our war viewer. I can't even make it full screen. So what we have done is we have selected war 514. Which is the second war, I think, since this change of capitals, which means that yeah, some of you already had the chance to get used to it a bit. I hope it's working. So this is actually, this is the war at the very start, and we are going to see how it progressed during the time. I think in the end, I believe the United States may have won this war. I'm not actually sure yet. I watched a different war, I think, yesterday. So, but let's have a look. So I hope it plays. Yeah. So this is basically, I'll speed it down just a bit. Oh, this is normal speed, so I can just explain a bit. Does it work? Yeah, so this is every dot you see flying here, every explosion you see is basically a town being fought for and which changed ownership. So it could be that the US took a town, or the Germans took a town, or the Soviets took a town. So this is actually the progress in the war. And if even town gets a specific darkish area around it, it means it has been fought for a lot. So so you can see that some areas on these on the map are general areas where there is a lot of combat going around. And in the right top, as you may see, you see how many battlefields each faction owns. So in this case, the US owns the most battlefields, has also won the most assault missions. So they won the most attacks. And on the last place is actually right now the Soviets with 100. Well, it's going up rapidly, but so this is basically showing who is the assaulting and who is winning most of the stuff. And as clearly can be seen, like Germany just lost the advantage here, but the US is still significantly gaining in amount of victories. And I already see some questions about the US still having underdog bonus. Once again, the underdog bonus is based on the population of a faction, so not on who wins the war. And we're looking into making this a bit more clear, but the underdog bonus is meant to balance out the players in war, so not necessarily the balance of the war. So it can still be that, for example, the Germans, they are very overpopulated, but in the end they are not winning the wars and they're not deploying the most assault teams. So as the war progresses, you see that actually this looks like Warsaw, I think. And the Germans are slowly but steadily getting a bit crippled there. Well, at the same time, they are losing territory towards Rome. But in general, if we look at it in comparison to previous wars, yes, we still see, of course, that the Germans are actually still losing the wars. But generally speaking, it does seem to have some certain effect on the war, is that Germany can get a stronger foothold at the start of the war. So I'm not saying like, oh, let's be done with this, this is all we're gonna do, no. But we need to have some time to analyze these changes, see what it actually does, how it actually performs, and based on that we can decide if we want to make additional changes. We, for example, still have the underdog bonus of we want to remove the war fund bonus from that is still planned. We may have to look at some choke points on the map to look if that's something we can easily adjust, so to make it a bit more easier for the Germans, or to make it harder for the US and the Soviets. It's whatever you like, depends on the areas. So that is still stuff we are actually looking into, and we also still want to run the auto-resolve experiment. But yeah, we need some time to evaluate what has happened. So we're right now at half the war, and we see that actually that the Germans, despite attacking a decent amount at the time, they're actually not really winning a lot of attacks. Could be because they didn't send in enough resources, could be that they didn't send in enough tanks, could be that they simply got outperformed, it could be many reasons. But it's good to see how this actually turns out, because in terms of battlefields, actually the Soviets are getting the advantage now in terms of battlefields, so it might actually be that the Soviets won this war. I'm not entirely sure. And well, as you can see, we have a significant amount of battlefields on the map. And right now, the most are in hand of the US again. And this war has ended on Saturday, 30 September at 10 to 12 midnight. So that's in Central European summertime, which means it ended during nighttime. So. And I do believe that actually this may have been a war which was ended by us because the last capital couldn't be taken, but that shouldn't take away that capital was actually being captured by another faction. It just didn't end properly. At Eisenheinrich, the underdog bonus was never meant for people who lost the war. It was always designed because it is very important. Besides, of course, achieving an RTS balance, it's very important to also receive a player balance. And the reason for this is because for the Germans, the matchmaking time can be very long, for the simple reason that they are so overpopulated that there is not enough battles for them to be filled. Which means that is one of the reasons why we implemented the underdog bonus. Like if we have 1,000 players online at the same time on each faction, as an example, that would be perfect because there would be battles for everyone practically. So everybody would have a decently fast matchmaking. It may not be entirely balanced on the RTS map because there are different ways to achieve that, but it will achieve a player balance, which is also very important. The underdog bonus currently mostly goes for the US and Soviets, Jared GG, so I'm not sure how that would result in low-level players joining Germany. But in the end, every faction needs new players to join in. You know, that's also a way to keep the game sort of fresh. So there needs to be a certain flow in every faction in terms of players. And those new players, who may not be very good at the game just yet, will eventually be better at the game or be very good at the game. But they need to start somewhere. So I'm just gonna slightly speed it up a bit, so you see that actually the Germans have already lost Rome, and they're actually still holding their corner near Greece a bit. But at the end it seems to have ended, and we had to end the war because I believe the US or the Soviets were capturing our capital and didn't properly register. I'm guessing it's over there. So, but this is something I plan, if we have some interesting wars, it's fairly easy to add these wars into this system. So we're hoping to show this a little more often, because I think it's quite interesting for players to see the progress of the war during time. And let's hope that in the future, when we do achieve a better RTS balance, that they will be even more interesting to see on how battles are going on. Like, if, for example, if we're having a war of 30 days, it should be fairly interesting to see where most of these battles were fought. Because right now you see, for example, that here on the from Italy towards Croatia and Greece, there's some heavy combat going on, or has been some heavy combat, and that Copenhagen area has been some pretty intense shit, so to speak. So yeah, this is something I would like to show more. I think it's very interesting to see, and it also gives us a good picture on how wars progress. So this is one part of the RTS I wanted to show, which leads us to the second part, which is actually that I've shown this in the previous streams as well, is that we have a look at the small resources. And I hope it opened on the wrong window. Let's have a look. So this is a picture from, I think, 2 days ago, because it shows a bit of an interesting war ending and a war beginning. So you see at some point here where there's a big vertical line, that means that is where the war was ended. So in this case it was actually the war which I've just shown at 2351. War ended, which means everything returns to stockpile, war funds are given away, and the new war starts. So what you see here is that actually the US has had a pretty stable infantry amount of roughly 830,000-40,000. They had some peaks, they had some dulls, but overall it seems pretty stable. And after a war has started, you see a significant increase, of course, because everybody tries to deploy. But you see that it goes up rapidly to a stable 750,000, and it's still climbing over time. So the US in this case, once again, has had the most units deployed in the previous war, and probably also in this war. So let's have a look at the German one. Is that the Germans took quite a heavy loss at some point during the war. I think maybe a lot of their units got encircled, or players started to undeploy, but as the war progressed, maybe players thought like, oh, I gotta bail out of here. That's entirely possible. So you see a small peak here, but after that it just goes down, down, down. So they lost really a lot of resources, and as you can see that some players try to compensate it by deploying again, but unfortunately it didn't help because they didn't win the war. But you see it going back up, and as soon as the new war started, people were like, oh yes, it's a new chance. And even though the screenshot doesn't show it, you guys peaked at around 500,000 infantry. So in comparison to the before the capital change, we actually see already an increase of either some veterans returning or some players deploying again, and it went up by 100,000 infantry, which is good to see, because I think it does help also in the RTS balance a bit. So what you can also see here, that it steadily climbs, and there are some losses, there's some gains. So and then we have the final faction, which is the Soviets, and the Soviets actually also had a pretty stable war in that regard. They lost quite a bit on the end of the war, or they went steadily downwards. But overall, I mean, they reached a peak of about 500,000 infantry, and after that they started losing a bit. But it was overall, I think, pretty stable for them. And once again, after here, you also see if the war is ended, it goes up quite rapidly because players want to deploy. So this is I thought this was actually quite interesting to show, because I think in the previous ones we didn't have the actual war ending shown, but this shows a bit like it's an immediate peak and players deploy like crazy, which is goes to show a bit on how a war starts and how our servers have to take for that, because there's literally hundreds of thousands of infantry being deployed or trying to be deployed at roughly the same time. So yeah, so that is the RTS stats, which I wanted to show you guys a bit, which brings us to, I guess, one of the bigger topics which I wanted to show you guys is that 2 streams ago, or 1 stream ago, we showed you guys some weapon statistics. In the meantime, in this time, 1.08 was released, which gave our weapon balancer a bit more time to look into these statistics and to gather some more statistics to see how they performed. And based on those statistics and your feedback, we have made some adjustments. So what I want to do is I want to go through some of these planned weapon changes with you guys, if it works. Oh, it needs to update again. That means they just uploaded a new version, because I was on close today. So what I'm going to do is I will actually show you guys some weapon changes, or hope to be showing that. If it works. Yes, there we go. So one of the weapons which got changed is the MG42, because there was a lot of complaints about it, and we looked at the stats and we came to the conclusion like, okay, the MG42 is not performing how we would like it to perform. So we are going to have a look at what we changed. So what has changed with the MG42 is that the MG42 will be easier to handle. So this is not yet on live. This is actually still, wow, that even almost made me deaf. It's not yet on live, which means it still needs to be tested. But one of the changes we prepared is that we are going to make it easier to handle, and we are talking in particular about the crouching and prone position. So I just have to load into a game to see. So what I'm actually going to show you guys is I'm going to a certain bar because I've made screenshots of how they perform now, because unfortunately I cannot show that live. But first I'm going to show what the old version looks like, and after that I will show what the new version looks like. Here we go. And we did some general testing of on this barn. And hold on, I think it was 66. Nope, then it was 61. Yes. So 1 second, I need to grab the command for a second. Control the show projector paths 1. Let's have a look. Die keyboard die. You're not being very nice, Rito Hates. So I hope, I'm just gonna check for a sec. I'm turning off the volume. I just need to check for a sec if it shows the in-game. Yeah, it does. So because previously it somehow didn't do that. So what I've turned on is actually I've got the MG42 here. As soon as I shoot, you will see that every bullet that I shoot will have a certain tracer, and it will show the tracers. So first I'm gonna shoot it in crouch position. Everything is in crouch position. I'll shoot it with normal aim, but without trying to control the weapon. And it's going to be a full burst, so it's going to be 50 bullets right away. And now my command didn't work. Give me 1 second. Controllers dot show. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Yes, sorry, once again. So this is the old version, just so you guys know, because I see here what a buff. Oh, it's so awesome. This is the old version. This is the current version which we have on the live servers. This is the one I'm showing right now. So basically what you can see here, so this is the bullet trajectory, and this is how I do not control it. Now I will use a zoomed in version where I try to control it. So this is pretty much how I try to control it, and I can do another one if you. I just need some new ammo. So this is how I try to actually control it on a, well, what should it be? 25, maybe 30 meters distance, something like that. And I can show another one on the side. So it is actually a bit random, because every time you shoot, there could be a slightly different pattern. I'm just trying to control it as much as I can. But in this case, you see that especially in the last burst, I simply had absolutely no control on how the weapon was performing. So unfortunately, as I said, I cannot really show you guys how it looks like right now on live feed, but I did take screenshots. And I hope you guys, I hope it does not prioritize the screen right now, but it might actually do that. Give me a moment. Yeah, it does seem to prioritize that. So I'm gonna just quickly disable these two and go back to, no, that one and that one. So what I do have is the screenshot of how it looks like on the rifle. So we have the MG42, which we just tested. I gathered a ton of screenshots. So this is from a distance. So basically what you can see is actually in the crouch position, the bullet trajectory going up is it's not that different. It looks kind of the same. Why is it not showing it? Oh, it is showing. So it looks kind of the same, but the way I'm able to keep control of the weapon has actually significantly improved. And I also have a close-up screenshot, because this is basically on a different server. So this is actually the changes which did occur. So I am going to this one. This is up close, and I only took the one on the close, on the one where I'm trying to control, because the one on longer distances, the one where I'm not trying to control it is not that valuable to see, because you should always try to control your weapon. But one of the main differences which I noticed while testing this is actually that the MG42, it's still of course in full burst, because this is just 50 bullets which I'm firing without trying to do small intervals. I am able to control the weapon a lot more, and it does not have that crazy stuff going upwards to the right or to the left without me being able to directly control it again. So in terms of buffing, in crouch position and in prone position, even though I haven't shown the prone position, it is significantly easier to handle the weapon right now. Just for the record, because I see some questions about this, I'm not using any modifications on the MG42 right now, and it's not on a character with tight grip equipped. So this is all without tight grip and without any sort of modifications to give the best perceptions on how it performs back now and then. So this is actually quite a significant difference. I'm not 100% sure when I will be when it will hit live. I'm guessing it will be in 1.09, but I don't dare verify that yet. Unfortunately, I cannot show this live for the simple reason that the server I need to test this on is an in-house server, and I am currently at home, which means that I would have to use a VPN to connect to the office, and if I do that while on a stream, it's gonna get borky, so I don't want to ruin the stream by doing that. So unfortunately I cannot show that stuff live. So one of the other changes which we have prepared is the Johnson. we've talked a bit about the Johnson before. We had a look at the stats, and people were really worried because read your rep yarn, something mentioned like, oh, it's gonna be a buff, but it's not going to be a buff. What happened to the oh, I need to quickly do this. What happened to the Johnson is actually that even though it received a buff on the long range damage, actually in the increased range damage, so the damage takes longer to fall off, the precision multiplier has actually been increased, which results in the weapon being slightly harder to handle. So in this case, because in the tracers it's not that visible, I've made a video. I'm not sure if it's with sound or without sound, but I must admit the vision wasn't all that clear either, but we're just gonna have a look. This one might actually be with sound, I'm not sure. So I'm just loading up in game at the moment. Sorry I didn't cut it, it was a lot of work and I didn't have a lot of time. So this is the old Johnson. As you can see, the sights are very, very stable. There's hardly any movement. Well, the gun that was actually without trying to control it, and this will be with controlling it. But in general, there's not a lot of side movement going on. This was actually, you see my gun going up and down very quickly. That was actually because my cat jumps on my keyboard and I didn't manage to control it. So that is has nothing to do with the gun, but it has more to do with my cats. This was on relatively close distance, so it's like, again, 25-30 meters maybe. So, but one of the main differences is, because I think I have this is the new Johnson. In comparison to the other video, you have to primarily look at how the sight moves, and I hope I did move it on the building, but there is actually it's a little hard to see because I can't put both of them next to each other, but the sights move a significant amount more when actually in aimed mode. So there is a lot more movement going on while trying to aim with the iron sight at your opponent. And this is, again, this is even closer distance as the previous video, so this is like 10 meters maybe, but there's a significant amount of extra movement. And in terms of, hold on, I can show, hold on, and we just have to travel to a new location then. Let's go here. Yes, I will just use this one. So in terms of handling, this is, again, guys, just for the record, this is the old version. This is how it handles, and this is, again, also not modified and on relatively close distance. So this is actually closer than I just tested the MD42 with. So this is how that looks up front. You can see that the bullets are relatively close to each other. And then we have the new version is this one first. So this is how it actually, again, it's a slightly different bar and slightly longer away, but this is the new version, which means that it's still relatively actually close to each other, but it is generally harder to control because the sights move a lot more. So it's going to be harder to track your target, and it's going to be slightly harder to actually get the bullets where you want them to go because the sight is moving a lot more. I know it's not very visible on the video, but this is actually a nerf of the weapon, a slight nerf of the weapon. So it's going to be slightly harder to control, basically, or it's in that matter. So that is the MG42 and the Johnson. So then we also have the Carbine. The Carbine has gotten a little easier in handling. the M1, M2 Carbine, and then we're talking primarily about handling on very close range to slightly mid-range. So it's not going to be like a super IMA large range weapon. Like the FCG will perform a lot better on mid-range, but they did improve it slightly, so it handles a tiny bit better. I'm just trying to find the ID. It's now 50. Yes. So once again, this is the old version. I'll take a bit longer distance now. This is the old version. This is how it does it right now. And I know that a lot of veterans actually prefer a slightly higher rate of fire on this weapon. But once again, I'm using the unmodified version to show the actual results. And well, this is how it looks on medium range. You see some distance between the actual bullets from, what is it, a range of 25-30 meters maybe. So that is how it looks on close range. The reason why I shoot in crouch is because in crouch mode I can do it from standing position as well. So this is how it looks from standing position. You can actually see a significant difference between crouching and standing position for these weapons, because it's simply a lot easier to control in crouching position. So this is actually how it looks in standing position, but this is the crouch position. And then we have the new version where it gets slightly better handling on the close and low mid-range. Is that it will be slightly easier to center your bullets in the right place, and that is roughly from the same distance as before. So this is actually also 25-30 meters in crouch position, so not in standing position. So you cannot compare it with the standing position I just took, but it has received a slight buff in handling. So you can see that the traces are a little closer to each other. So it's not a huge buff, but it is a significant improvement in the way you can handle this weapon. Yes, which leaves us to another weapon change which has been adjusted, not done by the actual weapon balancer, but done by one of the graphic artists, is that for the FG42, the Fallschirmgewehr 42, that weapon has received a sight change, or well, basically I can just easier show it. So this is the current sight of the FG42, which is very small, and even though I took it in bright weather, it is pretty hard to see your target through this. So what has been done is pretty much slightly similar to the Johnson. Is the sight has been sort of moved backward, so actually the aim becomes bigger, which means that right now, so once again I'll just hold on, this is the old version, and this is how it looks like right now. It's on a slightly different area, so the sights are actually a lot bigger for you to look through, which means it should be significantly easier for you to see your target, to track your target, and to fire at it. So what has been done is it's simply moved a bit more forward, so these sights are a little easier to handle. And no, it will not be added to infantry, Air Invictus, no. So that is also one of the changes which has been prepared for the weapons, or at least for the FG42 in this case. The Johnson will not receive a side change, because it actually, when we released the Johnson, this was already done. So now we have basically also sort of done it for the FG42. And then we have actually one of the last changes, yes, so many changes, to the weapons, is that we've seen a lot of complaints. Besides between 107 and 107.1, the game became a lot darker. So that is one of the things we were addressing. But besides that, we're also received a lot of complaints about the scope being too dark. So I kind of tried to take a screenshot of the fix which has been prepared. I'm not sure how well it succeeded, but I just want you to have a look. So this is, I took a bit of a darkish weather to better show you guys how dark it is. So this is the old, this is how it would currently look. I think I used the this is the 8x scope for the US Recon. So you can see it's it has very black borders. It is very hard to actually see your target like this. So besides the light changes which are being prepared, we have also been looking at how we can improve the scope size a bit to make it a bit more clear to use them. So this is the old version, and this is the new version. This is actually at the exact same spot on the exact same map, but you can already see that in terms of visibility, it is a lot more clear. It is a lot more clear on how you can actually identify your target. So I will just like quick swap between it. But you can see that the scope view has been significantly cleared up, and this is the exact same weather setting as well. So this has been done for every scope in the game. I use the standard brightness, just for the people asking, because if you increase your brightness, this actually makes the darkness worse. So I'm just using the standard settings. I am playing on full graphics, so the best graphics, but the brightness is just in the middle, so it's on the standard setting. So all scopes have been made more light. So it should be a little easier, especially in these weather settings, to see through them and to identify your target. And I see a lot of things being requested for the Soviets. So we looked at the statistics in terms of, because the sights changes and the FG42, we have to see basically as a little separate changes from the weapon balance changes. So we looked at the assault rifles and the LMGs, and what came out of that is basically that, well, we needed to adjust the MP42, so we improved the handling. The DP28 was performing very well. It is completely on par with and how it should be. The M1919 MG, aka the Browning, will be readjusted when we open up the ability to place down the sights. Once we do that, we will actually adjust the Browning, because it probably will be too powerful then. In terms of the assault rifles, where we look at, well, the Johnson received actually a nerf, despite you guys saying it's not. It receives a nerf and a slight buff on range damage, so the damage drop off is a little slower. And well, the AVS is the best performing assault rifle in the game. It performs incredibly well. So we have the M1 M2 Carbine, which we saw that it did not have the handling it should have, so it receives a slight buff on handling on the close and medium range. The STG is also performing how we want it to perform. It seems to perform quite well. That does not, by the way, take away that the STG does perform well, but we are still looking into the muzzle flash and the smoke effect. So please keep that in mind. But in terms of other stats, it actually performs okay, and it does not at the moment require any adjustments. So basically that is what has been decided, which means that for these weapons we have not planned any adjustments for the Soviet Union, because we do not think for these weapons that they need these adjustments. They are already performing how they should perform. So we're just going to have a very quick giveaway, since everybody's typing !gold already when I haven't even opened it. So we're just going to do a quick giveaway before we're going to the next subject. So I see that my planning, like I was like, I'm going to be done at 3:30 with this, you know, and then I'm going to continue to the next subject. I failed miserably, but fair enough. So if you want to participate, the command is, don't type it already, we haven't even started yet, is !gold. And it's open now. I hope it works. Does it? Hello? Why is it no? Oh, there we go. So I'm just gonna let this run for a bit. And I am going to stop in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Close giveaway. I'm going to pick a winner, and the first winner is going to be Fleischermeister. Fleischermeister. So please type something in chat, so we know you are actually alive. Congratulations. Please get in touch with Rito_hates, and he will set you up with what you need, aka your goodie. And I'm going to pick a second winner, which is going to be Team. Oh, you're kidding me, man. This is rigged like crazy, this stuff. It's so the second winner is Timo. And just for the record, Timo, even though you may have won, you do still suck. But please do type something in chat so we know you're actually here. Yes. Great, Timo. There's something disturbingly wrong with you. Please also get in touch with Rito_hates to receive your goodie. Yeah, I agree, guys. This was obviously weird. So both of you, please get in touch with Rito_hates to receive your gift. Which brings us to the next subject, because I have so much more to talk about. I just need to take a breath. Yes. So, another thing which we have been looking at, unfortunately I don't have screenshots for this, is that we've received a lot of complaints on the forums about the P38 Lightning being overpowered. So we put it on the list on a high priority to check this out, to see how is the plane balance actually performing. So what we have seen from these statistics is that actually if we look at the heavy fighters and the other fighters, is that the P38 Lightning is not overperforming at the moment. But there's a big but. What we do see is that in quite a lot of battles, in a large amount of the battles, is that the P38 Lightning outnumbers the opposite team 4-1. Which means that if you, as a solo fighter, try to join a battle, there's a fair chance that you may be fighting four P38 Lightnings, which means that is of course a problem. What we are looking into is how we can hopefully balance this a bit better, and we are discussing some things on what we can actually do about this. But the actual plane does not need adjustment. It is the actual matchmaking which needs some adjustments to make sure that the P38 guys are not outnumbering the other opposite players 4-1. So we will not be adjusting the P38 Lightning, but we will be having a look on how we can sort out the amount of planes in a battle a bit better. At Xanatos HNG, as to why the people play the P38 and not others, there's also a very clarifiable reason for this. Most likely is that when we introduce the heavy fighters, both the Germans and the Soviets received the medium fighter, so they already had the Messerschmitt and they already had the Yak, but the P38 Lightning was converted to an actual heavy fighter, which means that they automatically received a heavy fighter. And that may have led to a significant increase in the P38 Lightnings on the field in comparison to the medium fighters. Because if, for example, the P38 also remained a medium fighter and no heavy fighter was given for free, it may have been a totally different story. We don't know for sure, but this does seem to be the case. And naturally, because I see a lot of like, oh no, we are of course keeping an eye on this to see how this turns out, but as of yet we see no reason to adjust the P38 Lightning. And I know this is for a lot of you are like, this is not good news, this is being biased, but I can't just tell good stories on the stream. I think it's good for you guys to know that we're not planning any adjustments to these vehicles right now, because it's simply not necessary. But yeah, I can't always give the good news. It's just this is how it is. This is what has been decided, and we will have to look into the plane matchmaking. Which brings us to the next point. Just reading up some questions. Yeah, just which brings us to the next point. One of the other things which we have announced, because I think this was all the weapon and vehicle balance changes I will be talking about in this particular stream, is that in the previous stream we have also announced that we will reduce the bushes in the field boundaries by 50%. So what we have done is actually I've prepared some screenshots in regards to the field boundaries. This is the field boundary between Alpha 2 and the Alpha 1, Alpha 2 deploy zone. You may recognize it if you play the game a lot. So basically on the left side there is the Alpha 1, Alpha 2 deploys, and on the right side there is actually Alpha 2. So I took this screenshot from this exact location because this was an easy field boundary I could find. So this is how the field boundary currently looks. This is pretty thick bushes. So as an experiment, I see my battle is ending actually. Hold on. As an experiment, what we have done is, or what Rita Rapion has done, he has reduced the amount of bushes in these field boundaries by 50%. What just happened? This is an experiment. We don't know how it will turn out. We hope that this change will make a lot of players happy, but we need to see what differences it makes in terms of players being able to get through and to flank. So this is how it looks like in the new version as an experiment. So this is taken on the exact same place. So as you can see, actually the color of the leaves has changed. That aside, this is how it looks like right now. So it's a lot more open. I'll just quickly switch through them, but this is how it looks like right now. So this is an experiment. We want to see how this turns out. We will be analyzing what this change does, and in any case, if it turns out to be a good change, I may have a talk with Ritriabjorn to see if we can also do this for other similar difficult areas with a lot of bush. But for now, this should actually make a significant change because it's a lot more open, so it's a lot less easy to actually hide in it. And yeah, we're gonna have to have a look on how that actually turns out. It could be that it's still very easy to hide in it. It could be that it makes no difference at all, but that's stuff we have to see when it hits live. But this has been prepared. This is going to enter the testing pipeline soon. I'll just show it a bit more so everybody can see the clear difference. So this is actually the same tree, which you can see in the middle. The tree in the middle is actually the exact same tree. I think it looks the same. It's almost the same. Is it? No, it's exactly the same. So this is actually the weather is exactly the same as well. As far I even double checked that because I wasn't sure either, but the weather is actually exactly the same. So this is a significant change. When this is going to hit, I don't know. I am unable to tell you. It still has to enter testing phase, so it's in a pretty early stage. But it should probably hit 1.09. So that is another thing which I wanted to show you. Oh, it's so busy. So much to show. So much to show. I didn't even have time to play it. It's like this was supposed to be a play stream. It's impossible. It's impossible to play when you have so much to show. I'm telling you, it's impossible. Okay, so we had another look at. This is probably also going to make some of you a little angry in advance. Another thing we had a look was the Moscow servers. There was again a lot of complaints about the performance on the Moscow servers, and this has been an issue for quite a while already. So what we did, we had a look at the Moscow server. We had our server guys analyze everything around the Moscow server. And what comes down is that the Moscow server itself is in state-of-the-art condition, which means there is absolutely no issues with the Moscow server. However, what we did see is that the connection towards the Moscow server is simply, in some cases, insufficient and it lags. Which means that somewhere between you and the server, there is a problem, or there could be a problem. And those little problems will result in you maybe experiencing packet loss, experiencing lag, having a high ping and stuff like that. These are a lot of the reports we see. Unfortunately, everything which happens between you and the server is not something we have direct influence on, because you use the cables or the connections of the ISPs towards that server, and we do not own them. If we did, we would probably do something about it, but I don't think we're billionaires yet. So we do not own them, which means that there is a chance that this inflicts some problems. So there has been requests like, please disable the Moscow servers, please implement a filter so we can sort this out. But we will not do this for the simple reason that a very, very large proportion of our community is from Russia. And if we were to disable the Moscow server, or allow you to disable the Moscow server, it would result in the matchmaking times simply being significantly longer, because we would take 1/3 of the total matchmaking population away. And that is not something we want. We prefer to have an as fast matchmaking as possible right now. We just don't want to have really bad matchmaking times, and we want everybody to be able to get into the games as fast as possible and play on different regions. So we don't want Russians versus Russians all the time. We want everybody to play against everybody. So this is not something we are actually planning to do. So for now, and that is again for now, we do not plan to make any adjustments to the Moscow server, or you having the ability to disable the Moscow server. Which means that sometimes you will end up on the Rotterdam server, and sometimes you will end up on the Russian server, and well, so be it, so to say. And in regards to moving the Russian server, because that has also been suggested, moving the Moscow servers is the whole reason why it is there is because we have a large population in that area. So moving that would result in a whole different problem, is that everybody might have good high pings. So we do not want to do that either. So the Moscow server is actually for now there to stay. And at Crappy Corner, so it's fine with you that the Russians have this big advantage. It's if you play on the Rotterdam server, if the Rotterdam server is picked, then you have the advantage. So in that terms, it's like everybody has some sort of advantage on some server because they're closer than the other. That does not mean that we have to remove servers or allow you to disable these servers just so you can always have the advantage. And it depends per day, per match even, perhaps, how the Moscow server performs. It also depends on if there are any ISPs in the neighborhood experiencing issues. And we are well aware that the connection may not be perfect, but yeah, it is important to us, and in the end also to you, to have acceptable matchmaking times that these servers are staying. So that is actually another thing which I wanted to talk about. I think it was also fairly important to address this issue, despite the answer probably not being very satisfying to most of you. But in the idea of being more open to you guys, this is the conclusion which we came to. This is what we have seen, this is what we have analyzed, and we will keep an eye on it just to make sure that everything is actually running on our end. But we cannot do anything between you and the server. That is simply not in our power to do. Which means I have one more thing to show before, actually, because I did actually intend to play the game a bit as well. Is that in one of the upcoming updates, don't know which one yet, in the distant future, could be close future, no ETA, we will implement some UI changes. Oh, you're thinking like, not again. But we will implement some UI changes to facilitate an easier flow for new players and to inform them a bit easier. And one of these things which will actually change is that if you join into the game, you will automatically connect to a hub screen instead of your hero screen or your general screen, or I think you start on your hero screen. You will enter a hub screen, and in this hub screen we will share some new information with old and new players, and I'm here to show that a bit, so I hope this works. Can this move away, please? Come on. So one of these things which change is on the right you will have your friends. This is just still a little work in progress, so it might change a little bit. But one of the big important changes is that on the left you will have a war update, meaning that despite you being in a war or not, you will actually see how the war is progressing. And with that we also hope that for newer players or players who are not engaged in the war, they will see like, oh wow, there's a war part of the game. Let's have a look. How is it going? How is it looking? Keep in mind that this is still very much a work in progress. So this is very, very early stage, and there may still be quite significant changes, but what we want to do with this is we want to better inform players. We want to give you an easier connection with your friends, but also we want to show how the war progresses so that we can see, like the players can see like, oh, this is how it's going, and maybe I should join this faction to help them out, or maybe I should join that faction to see if we can change the war. And if you change war, or if you join the war, and once again this is still a work in progress, might not be final, might still be changed, you will see the wins and losses since your last time you logged in. So you will see how many battles did Germany fought. I think as Germans, you see, oh, you made 2 victories. Oh, you killed this many infantry, this many ground vehicles, but we lost also this many. Which means that these stats, which you usually see at the end of the war, will now be also available during the war, specified every time you log in. So every time you log in, you will see some new numbers, and you will see how the war progresses for your faction. So it could be that you've won 500 battles but lost 600, but you killed more infantry, but you lost less. So that is something which we actually want to show a bit more, so players are more interested in playing the war and are immediately updated on how the war has progressed while you were gone sleeping. So Keep in mind that this is, once again, this is a very early change. This is very early stage, so it could still change a lot, so keep that in mind, please. But this is how we a general idea of how we think it may look. So I don't understand why it's not moving that way, but you can see here, for example, so this is the hub in the top left corner, and then you have the heroes, the generals, and the store screen, and this changed a lot as well, the UI. You see your credits, your war funds, and your gold is now in a different position together with some of the other options. So in general, we are easing up the UI again to make it a little easier to do stuff. But this is a change which we would like to implement as well, which is this hub. At faction, the total losses of the factions is the losses you will see in this window, as far as I understand it, and it's still very early, is the total amount. So not just you as a player, but the total amount your faction has lost. And at Dr. Hoops underscore Jimmy, the map development is not being done by the guys who do this stuff. So the map development is a totally different area, being done by totally different developers. So that is actually one of the last upcoming changes which I wanted to share with you. So once again, this is probably not going to come in 1.09. It's probably going to take a bit longer. It needs some more work, and yeah, there's some stuff still to be done. So I will not be able to tell you when exactly it will come, but it's just a hint of what we are working on. Which brings us to because I think I have nothing else to show, do I? I think I showed everything. It's like, oh, FG42, old scopes, Carbine, MG42, Johnson. Yeah, I showed everything. So I'm actually going to